Hello, everybody, and welcome to our seventh live show. We are still picking and piecing our way across this crazy thing called the live show. I'm going to tease something right now for next week. We have an addition that we're planning on making. I don't want to announce it. I don't want to jinx it, but we have an addition that we're making to the live show that I think is going to be very exciting and help us operate the show, help Mara and I operate the show. But we are also improving on our own because I'm very happy to announce that this week we have not only a Mara microphone, but a Mara camera. Now, I am not holding her hostage somewhere in the Ukraine. This is just a part of the studio that we've not really set up yet. But let's say hi to Mara.
I would also like to say that we have very strong positive feelings about the Ukraine. That was not a dig on Ukraine.
No, it's more of a dig on the Taken movies, which isn't even in Ukraine. Where is he going in Taken?
I don't know.
Albania?
That sounds right.
I don't know. Anyway, my point being, she's not being held hostage. She's actually just across the room from me.
And I'd also like to point out that there is no glare. The glare is dead. So
yes, look, I'm gonna solo myself back again. The glare's gone. So we're making progress, folks. We've got a lot to get to today. Mara, of course, will be manning the comments and chiming in from time to time. We are taking not only the stories that we have for you here today, which is I'm going to do a review of the Hitman's wife's, but I keep on wanting to say the Hitman's Bodyguard's wife because that's also what the movie is about, but it's the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Terrible title. Anyway, I'm going to be doing a review for that movie today. We're going to be talking about all of this Batman, Catwoman stuff that's been going down. We're going to play a little game of our own that we have devised about that. We're going to be talking about the new Nicolas Cage movie, Pig. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for this, but it's bound to be either one of the best or one of the worst movies of the year. There's some streaming news that I want to talk about. There's some Golden Globes news that I want to talk about, and it's becoming weekly. It wasn't intended to be every single week, but we have another edition this week of This Week in Celebrities denying that they're going to be in things, because it seems like not a week goes by now where I don't see an interview clip online of somebody asking a celebrity whether or not they're going to appear in a movie or television show that they absolutely cannot confirm or deny that they are really in. So we've got so much of that to go over. I've got the donation down there right now because it's not just about me. I mean, it can be. It's really up to you. But if you want to ask a question here on the show, we also want to ask your questions. We have a question portion at the end of the show. If you send in anything below $15, $5 or more, between $5 and $15 really is what we're looking for. But if you want your question answered during the show, then you can send $15 or more. And, we can't tell you which way to send your money. However, I will say that if you do it via Streamlabs, then a lot more of that money goes directly to the show, whereas the super chats, I think about 40% goes to Google because they need it. They really do. I mean, I don't know if you know about Google, but they really are. They're in dire straits. So if you're in between sending the Streamlab or the super chat, maybe go to Streamlab. It helps us out a little bit more. But I'm not picky. I'm not choosing. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Also, one thing you can do for free is you can like this thing. Squish that like button. You can subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. You can share this video with some friends if you like what you're seeing here. All of that helps the channel grow. We're at over 94,000 subscribers. We're coming in very close to that 100,000 subscriber mark. We would love to get there. I'd love to get there by the end of the summer. It looks like we might be able to do that. We'll see. But a lot of that also depends on you. So thank you very much. We'll be getting to your questions later on the show. But before we take our first question break, for those that are sending in $15 or more, let us talk about the movie. It is the big release that's hitting theaters this weekend. It is the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, which, again, the last movie was called The Hitman's Bodyguard. And if you call it The Hitman's Bodyguard's Wife, it still makes sense with the plot. So why they're changing all of this? The other weird thing is the movie is actually called, apparently, The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. But this poster just says Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. This thing is a mess. I mean, listen, I'm not going to grade the movie based on nomenclature, but if I were, it would get a D-. But luckily, that's not the only thing that's going on with this movie. If you saw The Hitman's Bodyguard, it had Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson. Ryan Reynolds was a bodyguard. Samuel L. Jackson was a hitman. It kind of goes from there. Well, in this movie, you have your favorites returning. Ryan Reynolds returns as Michael Bryce. Samuel L. Jackson returns as Darius Kincaid. And, I saw the first movie, but it was kind of almost like I hadn't seen the first movie because I didn't really remember anything that happened in The Hitman's Bodyguard. If I recall, I don't remember whether I ended up going, fresh or rotten. I was very in the middle on that movie, to be honest. That's where I really was. I thought that it was a fair enough knockoff of an 80s buddy comedy. I think I was a little bit on the lower side on it. So it was kind of forgettable for me. It doesn't really matter. If you haven't seen The Hitman's Bodyguard and you want to go see The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, I have to check every single time, then you can, and you're not really going to miss out on much. They do catch you up a little bit at the beginning. There's not a whole lot that you need to know. You're not going to be lost. But Michael Bryce, who's played by Ryan Reynolds, is a bodyguard, and he's retired. He's brought out of retirement when Darius Kincaid, Samuel L. Jackson, is endangered, and he is recruited on this mission by Darius Kincaid's wife, Sonia Kincaid, who is played by...
He's not retired. He's on sabbatical.
He's on sabbatical, yes. He's not retired. He's on sabbatical. Darius Kincaid's wife, Sonia Kincaid, who is played by Salma Hayek. And the one thing to keep in mind about this movie is that it is not and I think this is to its credit, sometimes you see stars like this in a movie and it feels like a paycheck movie. This is not a paycheck movie. This is a fun movie for everybody involved because they all look like they're having a lot of fun with this film. Now, sometimes that's to the service to the film. Sometimes that's to the detriment of the film. But this does look like it was an awful lot of fun to work on. Everybody's kind of doing their thing in this movie. Ryan Reynolds is doing his thing. Salma Hayek is doing her thing. Samuel L. Jackson is doing the Samuel L. Jackson thing that has worked for him for so long. And they're doing it to a 12. This is not an understated or an underrated movie. I've got to say, this is one of the weirdest quote unquote blockbusters or whatever major releases that I've seen in quite some time, because it's not really about a story. The story just kind of meanders around everywhere. It's really a series of interlocking set pieces that allow Salma Hayek to have like a super filthy mouth, like one of the dirtiest mouths as far as language goes that I've seen in a movie in a long time. But she plays that note really well. And it's funny most of the time. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I get it. She can say the F word or she can string together a lot of different curses. And, I get the joke, whatever. But it really is just these little set pieces. When you get to the end of it, it doesn't really add up to much other than just a bunch of weird stuff that happened over the last hour and a half. You've got Antonio Banderas in there. He plays a Greek magnate, I guess, if you will, an influencer called Aristotle Papadopoulos. So he's knocking around in there as the bad guy. You've got Frank Grillo. Frank Grillo is in there as like an Interpol agent named Bobby O'Neill. Morgan Freeman is in this movie. He's on the poster, so I don't think that's spoiling anything, although I will not spoil the role that he's playing in this movie. And you're pretty much just knocking around between all of these really good actors and kind of let them have a good time. I've got to admit, I laughed quite a bit in this movie. I laughed more in this movie, certainly, than I remember laughing in the first Hitman's Bodyguard movie. A lot of times just because it was kind of that, WTF laughter. Like, I have no freaking clue what is going on here. Like what are they even doing with this movie? Sometimes it was genuine laughter. There's some actual funny lines, some actual funny moments in this movie. So it's kind of a tough one when I'm looking at, well, am I going to recommend it? Am I not going to recommend it? What do I think about the movie? I'm not sorry that I saw it. And I guess that's a recommendation. It wasn't a waste of my time. I came out of it saying like, well, I'm thinking about some things that I wouldn't have been thinking about if I hadn't seen the movie. So I guess that makes it worth it. Should you run out to the theater right now and see The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard? No, I'm not going to say that you should run out to the theater. If you were to wait until it was available, I think this one, with all the wheeling and dealing going around, I believe this one has a 45-day theatrical window. It's not like Spiral from the Book of Saw, which had an 18-day window. This one has a 45-day theatrical window. So you got about a month and a half till you can watch it at home. It's not the worst thing in the world if you decide to watch it at home. Mara, what, you have any thoughts to add? What do you think of the movie?
I also think it's important that you stay until the very end of the film. There's a little teeny tiny nugget of laughter that you'll get if you stay until the very, very end of the movie.
That's true. Thank you for reminding me that there is a very teeny tiny thing that's actually kind of subtle, kind of a subtle thing. It's one of the things that happens in the movie where you're like, what the hell is this movie? But almost kind of in an admirable way. Yeah, I mean, it's a peaks and valleys kind of movie, but ultimately I think the peaks are worth it. So if you got some free time, if you just want to spend hour 45 in the air conditioning, if there's a theater near you that's open, if it's safe to go to the theater, obviously, then there's worse things you can do than spend time watching The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. But there's better things that you can do as well, which I know is maybe not the most useful recommendation, but hey, it's what I got. I'm not going to tell you go see it or don't go see it, and it's up to you. If you like the first movie, you're definitely going to like this one. If you hated the first movie, you're probably going to hate this one. If you were in the middle like I was, I like this one a little bit better than the first one. So there you go. Oh yeah, and I want to give a shout out to at our local theater. We've been now twice in the last couple weeks. We went to see this one. We went to see Hitman's Bodyguard. Sorry. The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. And then last week we went to see In the Heights. And I want to give a shout out to two of the folks that work at those theater, two guys. One of them's named Clayton. One of them's named Grayson. Very nice guys working the concession stand there at the local theater. We stopped to chat a little bit. Clayton, who I met when we went to see the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, said that he was a big fan of Honest Trailers from back in the Screen Junkies days, which was very flattering. And then he said he'd been watching it since he was in 6th grade, which made me feel like a mummy. But that's still great. It's so great that they were there and we got to say hi. We got to chat a little bit, and we'll be at that theater quite often because the screenings. As I've gone independent, I'm very lucky to be able to get some screenings. There's some screenings I'm struggling a little bit with, both just as an outlet and then regionally. Arkansas is not a hotbed of critical screening activities. So there's some movies like F9. We're going to be driving 5 hours one way to see F9 next week. There's some movies that just don't screen anywhere around here. So we're going to our local theater more and more, and just going to the theater to catch movies. We're going to try to go see the Sparks Brothers this weekend if we can. So it's just great to have some friendly faces at our local theater. So Clayton and Grayson, very nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to seeing both of you soon. They're nice young boys. They're nice young. Yeah, I think that I'm young enough now. I think they're both like around. Well, one of them, Grayson is studying film in college because he said that watching stuff like Screen Junkies, he decided he wanted to go into film, which is very flattering. So, but I think Clayton is right around high school age, and so. Just really nice to meet fans. And I certainly had always I wanted to work in a movie theater when I was their age. So it's great to see them, hanging around and getting to say hi. So just a shout out to them because they were very nice. Also just great, very nice people to represent your, I'll say their employer, AMC. Great people to represent your company. Very nice, great at their jobs, very personable. High marks all around. So it's just nice to see. Oh, hi, Mark. It's just great to see friendly faces. Mara, do we have any comments to read?
We do.
We do have some comments. All right. Let me flip over to the comments there before we get on to our next. Oh boy, our next story is quite something. Before we get there, though, let's get to these questions. First of all, a shout out last week. I don't think that we had a chance. I think it came in right under the wire. The Game Cupboard donated and said, buy some treats for the cats on us. That was very nice of you. So thank you very much to the Game Cupboard for donating that. I have a question here from Brian Harrington. No questions, just supporting your channel. Brian, that's very nice. Thank you so much. Alan Smithy, apparently the comment, he wanted to take his name off of it. Alan Smithy says, hey, Dan and Mar, great to see you both live. Dan, I asked you a question one time, but you didn't have time to answer. What's the deal with Will Smith dying in a bathtub with a jellyfish? I could look it up myself, but I'd rather hear your answer. Thanks. Okay. That is a great question. Now, this probably goes back to my match against Jeff Snyder in the movie Trivia Schmodown at the beginning of the year. Spoiler alert for the movie 7 Pounds, if you have not seen 7 Pounds. But the 5-point question I got was, what movie involves Will Smith committing suicide by putting a jellyfish in a bathtub with him? Now, fair warning, I've only seen 7 Pounds one time. And that was right around the time it came out, not even in theaters, like on DVD. But to the best of my recollection, the reason that he committed suicide with a jellyfish was that he wanted to donate his organs. And any other method of committing suicide, bodily harm, even, ingesting something or whatever, would cause damage to those organs. And so he could not then donate the organs. And so he wanted to ensure that his organs all remained intact so he could donate all of his organs to those in need at the end of the film. So naturally, the best way to do that was to put a poisonous jellyfish in the bathtub. It's really very logical when you hear it explained in context like that. So yes, Alan, that is the explanation for Will Smith in the bathtub with the jellyfish. Thank you so much for those donations. Like I said, if you've donated on the next level down, we'll be getting to your questions after the news. But let's talk about this story. Sometimes you see something come across your desk, and by desk, I mean Twitter on my phone, that you just didn't see coming. I did not see this being a story this week, but this involves the DC universe. This involves Catwoman, and this involves Batman. And I'm going to do my best to, I joke about this a lot of times, like, well, better be careful because I'm going to get demonetized. I actually am going to have to be careful here. I'm going to do my best to not get demonetized. But here we go. Mom, mute the TV for a few minutes. This all comes from Variety. This was a story in Variety. It wasn't even really about this. This was a story about WandaVision, Harley Quinn, the Umbrella Academy, shows that have just sort of really made their mark as something different in the superhero realm. And this was buried inside of the story. This was a quote. This is from the showrunners of Harley Quinn. They were interviewed and they said, quote, "It's incredibly gratifying and free to be using characters that are considered villains when you just have so much more leeway. A perfect example of that is in this third season of Harley, when we had a moment where Batman was, let's say, performing superheroics on Catwoman. And DC was like, you can't do that. You absolutely cannot do that. They're like, heroes don't do that. So we said, are you saying heroes are just selfish lovers? They were like, no, it's that we sell consumer toys for heroes. It's hard to sell a toy if Batman is also, again, let's say, spelunking in the Batcave on someone. So this brought up a whole debate about, first of all, a debate about actually, I think it's a definite double standard of the fact that obviously, these were some executives who were not comfortable with Batman performing certain acts, but have been comfortable, it seems, with other female superheroes performing certain acts. Of course, in The Killing Joke, we had Batgirl, throwing down with Batman. Nobody really seemed to be worried about superhero toy sales at that time. But the idea that Batman would not perform such an act because heroes don't do that, and you wouldn't buy a toy of a hero that did that. Well, first of all, I think that that's a ridiculous argument. And some other people did as well. About Val Kilmer, who put on the cape and cowl himself at one point, gave it a tweet. Does he or doesn't he? With a GIF from Batman Forever that just says, we could give it a try. I'll bring the wine. A great interaction with Dr. Chase Meridian, one of my favorite character names of all time. And then Zack Snyder, of course, jumped in. And I've had to slightly censor this image because, again, it's not that I object to the act. I really truly believe if I were to show this, I could potentially get demonetized. Zack Snyder either had a great hand in this himself or got a great freelance artist to sketch such a thing. But he tweeted this image, which was, again, a depiction of Batman going down the bat pole, as it were, with the word canon, and the Catwoman looking very happy with the activity that's going on there. Obviously, this was a huge hit, 266 likes on Twitter and counting. And so really the question being raised here, first of all, I think it is a double standard. The idea that it's a very antiquated notion that the idea of a male, not even a male superhero, but a male, that is somehow subjugating or whatever. I mean, that's just a very outdated notion, I think. And then to apply that to the superhero genres is pretty ridiculous. Now, I understand it's certainly unexpected. But it seems like if you're a Warner Brothers executive, people that watch the Harley Quinn show, and full disclosure, I have not, although I've certainly heard a lot about it. It's very irreverent from what I've heard. It's not, you're not expecting your typical superhero fare from Harley Quinn. It does push the boundary. You would think that they would perhaps be okay with that, but apparently some people at Warner Brothers not okay with that. But that brought to mind a game that I would like to play with Mara. So I'm going to add Mara here to the stream.
Mara does not. It is an appropriate game.
It is an appropriate game.
Let's be really clear here.
We're not going to be very. We're not going to be going into details.
Well, I do have one thing to add, by the way.
Yes. Oh, yes, please.
Deadpool celebrated International Women's Day, and he could still have toys. So
that's
I'm just
a great
saying,
point.
Like,
they sold plenty of Deadpool action figures,
mm-hmm.
and he was very much about International Women's Day.
Yeah, he's very liberated in terms of his perceptions about things that you can do with an intimate partner.
I mean, Batman has Batman has done many heinous, like, actual things in real life, and like they still sell toys. Nobody cares. Like, it's just funny to me. Sorry, I bumped the camera there. It's just funny to me that whomever this executive was thought that this would be the thing that people would be like, I am not buying that action figure. No, sir. Batman can have his back broken. Batman can have a teenager living in the house with him. Batman can do any number of things, but not that. That is where I draw the line, and I will not buy the figure. Anyway, that's pretty ridiculous. But so I know the identities of these superheroes that I'm about to name. Mara does not, and we're going to play a game. And again, we're going to try to keep this as clean as we can. So the game was just called "Does He or Doesn't He?" And we are referring to the activity that got this conversation started to begin with. Does he or doesn't he? So, Mara, I have a list here of about 9 or 10 superheroes.
Okay.
And the question is, let's say we live in a world where they exist and they're real.
We live in a society.
Yeah, we live in a society. Does he or doesn't he? Very simple question.
Okay.
Ready to go?
I've never been more ready.
All right. Superman. Does he or doesn't he?
I would say that the newest incarnation, I do believe that this Superman, yes.
Cavill.
Yeah, Cavill.
Cavill. I think all would, because there could perhaps be some other issues with his Kryptonian makeup that could prevent further activity. So I think it's almost a requirement, because, if he's going to have a thriving after hours life, let's say. So I think all versions would, but Cavill for sure.
I don't know if the Dean Cain Superman would have.
No, Dean Cain Superman definitely
I don't think so.
No, definitely would not have. No. All right. This is kind of a given. Iron Man. Totally, right?
Yeah. He's a very giving person.
Iron Man, very generous, charitable person.
I think anything for Pepper.
All right. I have a split answer for this, but I'm curious what you think, because there's many different versions. Green Lantern.
Ray Green Lantern, yes.
Right. So I agree. Ryan Reynolds, yes.
Yes.
If you're going comic books, I think you have to be a little more specific. I would say Hal Jordan, no. Guy Gardner, definitely.
That's canon,
right? Guy Gardner, 100%. Kilowog, jury's out.
I don't know.
All right, He-Man.
Which He-Man?
Let's go with animated
classic
He-Man.
Okay. I'm going no.
You don't think He-Man does?
I don't think so. What do you think?
I think He-Man doesn't, but Prince Adam does.
Ooh.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite of what you might think.
I like that.
Because He-Man's only around to solve a problem. I don't think he's really hanging around, afterwards. And there's some freaky deaky stuff that goes down in Castle Grayskull. You know that. All right. I hope my mom still has the show muted.
Well, let's hope.
Daredevil.
Okay, again, which one?
I'm
going to say Affleck. No, he just seems like he can't do anything right. And I'm going to say Netflix, yes.
Netflix Daredevil, yes. Affleck Daredevil, no. I'll say comic book Daredevil. I think so. He's got extra sensories. I just think that there's a lot that's possible for this Daredevil. That perhaps
there's so much other stuff that can go into that with sound and reverberation.
You name it.
And spaces.
I just think that you don't hide that candle under don't hide that lamp under a. Anyway, Captain America. See, this is tough for me, because I think I know what the answer is, but I don't want it to be the answer. Chris Evans, Captain America.
I think that in his time, no, but bear in mind, again, he was very pure at that time. He had only ever just kissed 2 girls. And I think, though, that him coming back into the 21st century, I think that he would not, unless it were with Peggy. But since he didn't have Peggy then, I think maybe he would introduce it to Peggy later. And it would be up to Peggy's level of comfort, not his, because I think he would do anything for Peggy.
Yeah.
But he would never want to make her uncomfortable.
I could just see him being like, well, you only gave us 1 tongue, ma'am, and it was not for that. I don't know. I could see maybe it evolved. Maybe that was on the list. Maybe somebody had him put it on the list. I hope so.
Maybe.
All right, we're going to stick with captains. We're going to go from Captain America to Captain Planet.
Oh my
Does
god.
he or doesn't he?
I mean, honestly, I feel like all of them do some really freaky stuff together, like all together.
There's a whole thing going on.
All of them together.
There's a whole thing going on that we don't know about. I agree. I don't know which way to go with. I think I know which way. Wolverine.
He seems like he could get down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a very tortured man, though. I think so, right?
Yeah, I think so. I honestly think he would consider it to be like, it's the chore I want to do.
It's like his mission.
Yeah, I think so.
Weapon X. All right, two more. All right, Aquaman.
Oh yeah.
Especially Momoa.
Yeah. Definitely
Momoa, right? But no, I don't think like Super Friends Aquaman. No.
No.
How's the chat like in this? Are they enjoying it?
I really hope that people that aren't able to watch live today come back and watch, and they should read the chat because you're really missing out on an experience here. We're really, I feel a closeness to the viewers that I hadn't ever felt before.
Listen, we're a young show. And we're really just trying to have that communal experience. And John, maybe this will do some recurring segment. Maybe this will just be a recurring segment.
Does he or doesn't he?
Does he or doesn't he? Okay, I just had to put this on this because this is so obvious. Gambit. I mean, I would almost say exclusively. You know?
Yeah. Although part of me wonders, would playing cards be in the mix somehow?
No, I don't think so.
You sure? Because I feel like maybe.
Because then the kinetic energy, that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. I'm not saying
it's not, but some intimate acts can be dangerous.
I think that Gambit has 2 mutant powers, is what I'm saying. And
I think what you're putting down now.
I think that Gambit is a definite. All right. So that was this edition of Does He or Doesn't He? Maybe this is the worst thing we've ever done on the show. Maybe it's the best. I don't know. I'm glad you could be on camera and microphone for this, Mara.
I feel like it almost would have been better if I weren't, though.
I don't think so. You brought up some good points.
Thank you.
Especially with Captain America's learning nature, the fact that he's growing. I didn't take that into account. So I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that wraps up this week for Does He or Doesn't He?
By the way, we do also have a couple of more things that have come in that you need to talk about.
All right, let me do that. Let's answer some questions. Thank you, Mara.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Greg Troyan says, pro tip, anime has many different genres within the medium, action, rom-com, horror, etc. Not all anime is like Miyazaki. Suggestions, Dragon Ball Z and Polar Bear Cafe. The latter is a heartwarming sitcom with Paddington vibes. Well, color me interested. Anything that you say has Paddington vibes, I'm all about it. And then R. Wallace says, hey, Dan, I mentioned this before, but I feel like I didn't sell Bugsy Malone enough. Sir Alan Parker directs, music by Paul Williams, teens, Scott Baio, Stay With Me, and Jodie Foster, heartwarming. I think you'll love it. Oh, that's right. I was thinking of Bugsy with Warren Beatty, Bugsy Malone. Yes. Scott Baio and Jodie Foster. Never would have thought of those two together, but that's pretty interesting. All right. Well, thank you for those comments. Much appreciated. Let's go into our next story. It's not quite, it's different than the last one, I will say. If you didn't like that last one, that's all right. Now we're going to talk about Nicolas Cage. It gets somehow weirder. You didn't think we'd get weirder than we just were. We got a little bit weirder. There's a trailer that has come out for the next Nicolas Cage movie. The movie is called Pig. It stars Nicolas Cage as a truffle hunter who has a prized pet truffle pig, and the pig is stolen. And so Nicolas Cage then goes out on a quest to find his stolen pig. Let's take a look at a brief clip from the trailer for Pig.
I'm looking for a truffle pig. Someone stole her.
I don't understand.
Tell me who you are.
Who has my pig?
I mean, yeah, right? I mean, this is, as I said when we started, this has the potential to be either one of the best movies of the year or one of the worst movies of the year. And I don't know which one it is. It's a Neon release. Neon generally, I'm actually a little higher on Neon even than A24. A24, they're a little samey for me. It's the very, very slow, very depressing. Most A24 films, very kind of opaque. Some of them work. Hey, Hereditary is my favorite movie of that year. Some of them don't work for me. I was never a big fan of like It Comes at Night or a lot of the other ones. But Neon, I think, releases a lot of very different films that I'm really into. So I'm into the movie. I'm into the concept of Pig. I like the idea of Nicolas Cage as a truffle hunter who's after his pig. It's sort of like a John Wick with pigs. Mara, tell them what you told me about this movie though before we started.
Which thing?
About what you'll do if certain things happen. In this movie.
If anything bad happens to the pig, I actually forget what my ultimatum was, but I think I said I'd burn the world down.
I think you said you would burn the world down. So let's hope that this pig survives, not only for the pig's sake, but for the world's sake.
Well, it reminds me of Piggy Smalls.
It does.
And you know I love Piggy, and Piggy loves me. We had a blueberry moment.
That's true. Piggy Smalls is...
and in my headcanon, Nicolas Cage grows up to be Kaiser.
Yeah, our smoking manager, Kaiser, has a pet pig named Piggy Smalls. And
he's so cute.
Our friend of blueberries when we were in Los Angeles. It was very cute. It was a very heartwarming moment. I don't really have anything more to add to that. It's just that Nicolas Cage is going to be a movie about a pig, a guy who lives in the woods and has a truffle pig and like goes to find it. I think that's notable. I think we should talk about that. Moving on. I really have literally nothing else to add to that. Let's talk about a recurring theme that we have. This is a new segment that we have on the show. It's called This Week in Celebrities Denying That They're Going to Be in Things. This week in Celebrities Denying That They're Going to Be in Things, we're going to talk about Laurence Fishburne. Laurence Fishburne was recently doing an interview with a YouTube channel called Jake's Takes. This was for his upcoming film with Liam Neeson called The Ice Road, which, by the way, in case you didn't know, Liam Neeson has a film. I believe it hits theaters next week with Laurence Fishburne. It may be VOD. I'm not sure. I'd have to check. Called The Ice Road. And he was asked about his appearance. I don't think this is an indirect sequel to Cold Pursuit, no. But Fishburne was asked about his potential appearance or non-appearance in the next Matrix film. Let's see what his response was. This is, again, courtesy of the YouTube channel Jake's Takes.
Because I have to be honest, I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around how Neo and Trinity are coming back for Matrix 4, but you're not coming back, as Morpheus was the only one that was still alive at the end of Revolution. So I'm curious, are you truly not involved, sir?
I'm not involved, and you'll have to talk to Lana Wachowski, and she'll answer that question for you.
It's so nice to meet you. Hopefully next time we're together is actually in person, sir.
Yes, that'd be nice.
And I'm going to keep asking you about Matrix because I got to have answers, sir. Only
answer I can tell you is Lana Wachowski can answer those questions for you better than I can.
It's funny. I talk about it. It's and listen, Jake's Takes. It was the thumbnail. It was the title of their video. It was picked up. That's why these questions are asked in interviews. But it's just funny. I think this is the third time that we've done this. All of these interviews, whether it's from a YouTube channel, from a radio show, from a TV show, from a podcast, they all have the same structure, which is, I know you can't tell me anything, but I got to ask you. You say it says that you're not, but are you? And then the person's like, no, I'm not. Ask so-and-so. And then the interviewer's like, okay, but are you? And they're like, no, I'm not. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to keep asking you. And they're like, okay, but I'm not. And then here we are. So yet again, now we've featured Andrew Garfield. We featured Emily Blunt. We have featured last week Liam Neeson, who's Fishburne's co-star. They can't promote this movie is the problem. Liam Neeson keeps getting asked about Obi-Wan, and Laurence Fishburne is asked about a Matrix. But Laurence Fishburne, at the time of this recording, not in Matrix 4. After that interview, still not in Matrix 4. And I don't believe any news is broken that he will be in Matrix 4. So let's all just let's trust Jake's take here. And if anyone else is going to interview Laurence Fishburne, why don't we all just agree that for right now, unless we hear differently from Lana Wachowski, that Laurence Fishburne will not be in the Matrix 4. I think can we just agree to that, just as media, as I'm speaking to the, let's say, 4 other people in the media space that are watching this. Let's all just agree to not ask Laurence Fishburne any more questions about Matrix 4. I'm sure that would work. I'm sure it will. Let's see if we have any other questions to get to. We do have a couple questions. All right. Or 1 or 2. Let's see. This is from Josh L. Josh says, hey, Dan, great to see/hear Mara. I agree. It is great to see and hear her. I get to see and hear her every day. I'm glad that you get to see and hear her now, too, on the channel. How do you feel about those old Beatles movies like Help? I think they're horrible, but also slightly endearing. Your thoughts? Thanks. Well, Josh, to be honest, I've only seen, and it was actually very recently, A Hard Day's Night, which was directed by Richard Lester, who would go on to take over Superman 2 from Richard Donner and then directed Superman 3. I actually really liked A Hard Day's Night. I thought it was really good. I thought it was very funny. I love the fact that you interweave in the Beatles' performances. So it's sort of like half of a comedy, and it's almost sort of like an existential comedy. It's not just kind of a flat out comedy, but there's also some slapstick stuff in there. And then half of like a time capsule to like, this is the time when the most popular person on the planet, or sorry, the most popular band on the planet existed. So I have not seen anything but A Hard Day's Night. Mara, I think you've seen a couple of them though, right?
Yes, I have. I cannot tell you enough times, and I'll repeat it so that way the viewers will tell you. We need to watch Yellow Submarine because it is weird and cool, and there are things like edibles now that are legal, and I feel like the experience is going to be even better than it ever was before.
Well, I was waiting until there was only legal options for me to watch a movie high. I've never done it in my life, so I'm glad to know that there's a legal. I'm glad to know that there's a legal way to do it now. Yeah, I know. The Beatles movies are something I just need to watch. Like Help. I can't talk Help specifically. I can't really speak on because I haven't seen it. But I will say the one that I have seen, I really liked. So I don't know if you also are not crazy about A Hard Day's Night, but I really liked it. I've got the Criterion Blu-ray downstairs. All right, couple more news stories to get to. The Golden Globes. The Golden Globes they continue disintegrating in slow motion. I almost kind of think they're not going to come back with this. And as fun as it is to watch that ceremony and everyone getting drunk, I'm sort of okay with it. The Golden Globes keep falling apart. 2 members of the Hollywood Foreign Press resigned this past week, calling the group toxic. They say they're going to make their own organization for global journalists living in Los Angeles. And, I know that we make the joke that there's not room for 2, but I really don't think there is room for 2 separate organizations of foreign journalists based in Los Angeles, because I'm guessing it's a pretty small group. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's the problem with the Golden Globes. But here's what went on. Diederik van Hoogstraten of the Netherlands and Wenting Xu of China resigned from the Hollywood Foreign Press leadership. The LA Times reported on Thursdays. They said that the Hollywood Foreign Press Association is a place where, quote, bullying of members by members is left unquestioned and unpunished. The badgering of talent and publicists, ditto. Payment for internal jobs has skyrocketed lately. Morally and fiscally, this self-dealing and sense of entitlement is a scandal in and of itself, but the lack of transparency goes beyond just the financials. Since February, most decision-making has happened behind closed doors. Now, when they say since February, they're speaking about the controversy that has really just engulfed the Hollywood Foreign Press about its lack of diversity in membership, the almost complete absence of Black members of the Hollywood Foreign Press, and then following that, embarrassing leaks and messages from senior members that really did not put their best foot forward. Reportedly, some resistance from inside the Golden Globes organization, even though publicly they've said that they are going to do what they can and what they need to do in order to be a little more contemporaneous, reportedly from the inside. And these 2 also charge that the internal operations have been very resistant to these changes. The Golden Globes wrote, quote, the majority of the membership resists. I should say the 2 journalists that resigned said, quote, the majority of the membership resists transformational change. Internal opposition to the status quo has been stifled, and critical voices such as ours have been largely ignored. The Hollywood Foreign Press responded with a comment on Thursday night saying, quote, at a time when the overwhelming majority of our members have chosen to be a part of change, it is disappointing that some members have decided to try and splinter our organization and sow division and doubt. So the Golden Globes is a big fat mess right now, is what it is. I like that even the Golden Globes in their statement says, at a time when the overwhelming majority of our members, meaning I think that there's probably something to the fact in this resignation and in the statement that was made that there are people inside the Golden Globes organization that are resisting this change. And I think that that's part of the problem is they're saying, well, why do we have people inside the organization that are resisting long overdue changes that are being made? And then this is, it's also partially with what we talked about, which is the fact that the Golden Globes historically, and this has been a running joke in Hollywood, is known as a gravy train organization, as a group of people that are in it for the perks, that will take advantage of every perk that is given to them, that will line up, that will demand the perks and then will wield that power to do these awards that are and maybe will in the future be seen as influential. Maybe not, we'll see. But the fact that it is known as a gimme kind of an organization. And, that's not, to be fair, that is not exclusive to the Golden Globes. As a critic, I will say the overwhelming majority, as the Golden Globes would say, the overwhelming majority of my colleagues, at least the ones that I've had personal experience with and that I've seen, have utmost respect for the art form, for the talent, for the process. But, I have been at events where critics that I'm not familiar with, I have seen this sort of behavior. I have seen this sort of swarming of celebrities, this idea that we're doing this, we're having this, ceremony or we're having this big to do that has this nationwide reach. So, you owe us a picture, you owe us this. And the idea that, you can just barge in. It's I've seen this sort of behavior. So it's not constrained to the Golden Globes. I will say that it is the minority of people that I've seen, but it does happen. And I think what really needs to be shown is consequences, and the idea that there is a decorum, there's a professionalism that has to be noted and it has to be seen. One of the proudest moments that I've had as a critic was we couldn't do it last year, but 2 years ago, we had I believe, was it the first in-person ceremony for the HCAs? Or I don't remember if it was the first one in person, but the Hollywood Critics Association, which is an organization that I belong to that started just a few years ago, had an in-person awards ceremony, and many of the nominees showed up. Bong Joon-ho was there, Taika Waititi was there, and they were seated along with the other critics in attendance. And I was very proud to be part of the organization on that night because everyone, we made discussion and conversation. They were sitting at tables and, people didn't ignore them, but there was not this idea of a swarm of people. And then at the end of the night, when the attendees who wanted to duck out quickly and go had gone, the people that wanted to hang around, that wanted to speak to people that were okay with taking pictures, etc., they stayed around, and it was a very comfortable thing. It wasn't a thing of just let's all swarm this person while they're eating dinner. It was very much a thing that happened after the show. And so, Mara and I got a picture taken with Taika Waititi, and I was able to say hello to Bong Joon-ho and got a picture with him. But it was not this sense of okay, there's a 2-minute break in the ceremony, I'm going to rush to the table and do that. I've seen that at other occasions. And so that kind of decorum is possible. You just have to make sure that you have members that understand that you are professionals and that, yes, there is a time and a place for these kinds of things, pictures and whatnot. And you should probably know as a professional when that appropriate time and place is. But I think you also have to hold people to account that don't observe that kind of decorum. And I think that as with so many other things that have been going on right now with everything in the last few years, this is about accountability. It's about revising the way that things work in Hollywood to hold people accountable. It doesn't matter that this behavior has been tolerated for decades and decades, and that goes up to things way worse than running up to celebrities for an autograph if you're a critic. This goes up way up the ladder. But the idea that just because something has been kind of, your eyes have been rolled at it, or it's been a dark secret, or it's been a well-known secret for decades or however long, that doesn't mean it's still okay. Hold people accountable. The Golden Globes are being held accountable. They're being held accountable from outside. Now, apparently, they're being held accountable from inside. And it will be interesting to see what form and shape the Hollywood Foreign Press Association takes after this. And also, if there is a new organization, and will it supplant the Hollywood Foreign Press Association? We will see. We could be looking at the beginning of a Hollywood Foreign Press Association civil war. I don't think it's going to be as entertaining as the movie Civil War, but and far less stakes. But it could be interesting. All right, here's our last news story before we go to questions, and then we also have a little breaking news that I wanted to talk about. This is something that I actually really like. This is a streaming service called, and I actually had not heard about it. It's called Documentary Plus. It's a streaming service that is devoted solely to documentaries, and which I think is great because that is an overlooked film genre and medium. And they have announced that they are going to be the first streaming service on record, at least, to share data with their filmmakers, with the people who are actually making the movies that they are putting on their platform, about who is watching. So the filmmakers of the projects that are on Documentary Plus will know what the viewership numbers are, who those viewers are, the breakdowns, the demographic breakdowns, etc. All the stuff that you know in traditional media, like with television or exit polls from theaters, etc. Documentary Plus is going to be the first streaming service on record to share that data with the filmmakers that are on their platform. This is a statement from Bryn Mooser, who is the founder of XTR. XTR is the company behind Documentary Plus. Bryn Mooser said, quote, "My hope is by doing this, we spark a very real conversation about who has the right to that data, who owns that data, and what it should be used for. Corporate streaming platforms think of their data as a competitive advantage against other platforms, so they're secretive about it. But I think as an independent streamer like Documentary Plus, a competitive advantage that we can have against corporate streamers is that we can be transparent with our data. We can be in partnership with our filmmakers." And bravo, first of all. Yes, the idea that you can be upfront and that if you have a documentary on Documentary Plus that's a hit, you have a streamer that's able to tell their audience or their filmmakers, hey, you made a hit. Because you know what? Yes, that does mean it may be a little more expensive for you if you want that filmmaker's next film. But not the way that it should work. If you make something popular, shouldn't you be told that you made something popular? Shouldn't you know exactly how it did so you can know what worked or know who it worked for or worked with? And also to be able to go back to that person next time and say, hey, we made this documentary and it brought in a younger audience. This documentary had the biggest 18 to 25 viewership of any documentary on your service. So we think for our next one, you can pay us X amount, or we want to do this. As a filmmaker, you should have that information, and the streamers don't share that. They don't share it publicly, and according to a lot of accounts, they don't really share it with the filmmakers or the people that are in the projects that are on their streaming services. I don't think this is going to be adopted as the industry standard, but it should be, because that data has already been available. It's been available for everything. It's only because they weren't locked behind a streaming wall, because the studios couldn't control people being able to measure who watched what. And we're finding ways now around the whole streaming thing. We have people like Samba TV, and I don't believe that's a comprehensive look at what's going on, but it's at least beginning to be able to measure at least some shows against other shows based on just that metric. Streaming services should be upfront with their numbers. Number one, because there is a bad history in Hollywood of fudging the numbers. I forget which Harry Potter movie it was, but there was a whole thing where Warner Brothers claimed that one of the Harry Potter movies, which had made like, $800 million worldwide, they said it hadn't turned a profit. Well, because they don't have to share those numbers. When studios don't have to share numbers, they can come up with a lot of creative ways to say that something wasn't a hit, or that was a hit, that they want to make a hit. So I applaud this, and I agree. If I was a documentary filmmaker, even though Documentary Plus is not as big of a platform, but if I was looking for some place for my project and they are a platform that is committed to integrity and committed to openness, and that if I put my documentary on their platform, I will know who watches it and how many people watch it and how successful it is because they're sharing those numbers, I would be tempted to work with them too. And all it takes is one or two of these other platforms to make that commitment, and you're going to see people be tempted by that. So even though this is a small number of things, Documentary Plus, probably only in a handful of homes, let's be honest, or on devices, etc. This is a first step. Maybe some other people will be tempted to take it. I don't think so. I think that these streamers are not going to share the data until they're forced to, because someone is going to come up with a way eventually, and I don't know how, to actually measure this data. And so they're going to want to get ahead of the story, like studios do with box office numbers. They report the data because otherwise you could track this data down. You could get it. I think that streamers are going to do this eventually, but I like this voluntary strategy, and I think that this should be the status quo going forward. So kudos to you, Documentary Plus. I salute you, not to take a bit from my partner, Ben Bateman, and his Action Army, but I salute you, Documentary Plus. Excellent work on that. All right. That's all I've got for the news this week. Actually, no, Mara actually reminded me there was something that I don't have graphics prepared for, but it is something that could impact the movie-going time in LA, which is that Pacific Theaters, who owned many, many theaters in Los Angeles, including, well, they didn't own the ArcLight Hollywood and the Cinerama Dome. They operated both theaters, but they owned things like the Grove, the AMC, the Americana, the Pacific theaters at the Grove, the Americana theaters. Also, they ran the other ArcLight places nationwide that weren't the ArcLight Hollywood. They owned and ran those things. They have filed today for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Chapter 7 bankruptcy means they're not coming back. Chapter 7 bankruptcy means they are going to sell the seats in the theater, the popcorn machines, the projectors, every asset they have, they're going to liquidate and sell to pay off their investors. So Pacific Theaters, the concept that they may perhaps in part reorganize and reform, that is out the window. Not going to happen. They are liquidating everything. They will not be back. It is gone. It is out of business. Goodbye. So the question now is, what's going to happen to those theaters? I actually had a heads up from a friend of ours, Eric Barnes, this week said, hey, look on the AMC app right now. The Grove and the Americana are on there. And sure enough, they were. They're not now, but there's also been reporting that AMC is coming close to negotiating deals to take over operation of those theaters in Los Angeles. So those are two big theaters that would be back up and running. The Cinerama Dome and the ArcLight Hollywood are a little different because they're not owned by by Pacific. They're owned by someone else. They now are there, but they don't have an operator. So someone has to come in and operate those theaters. We don't know who that's going to be yet. There's also other ArcLight locations around Los Angeles and around the country that were owned and are now out of business. Things like the ArcLight Sherman Oaks. Is somebody going to come in and run those theaters, take over those theaters? It's not just like taking over a lease. It's taking up the company, the business of running the company. That we don't know, but that was some late breaking news. Pacific Theaters filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy. They will be liquidating their assets. So no reorganization for that company. Any of these ArcLight theaters now are going to have to find new owners for them to resume business. All right, let's look at the questions. And we have a $15 question from Corey King. Thank you, Corey. Hello, Dan. Good to see you, Mara. On a scale from 5 to 10, it's an interesting scale. What's your favorite Will Smith movie? Unrelated, my cat, Lil John, was a big fan of your cat segment last week. He says, thank you, I think. On a scale from 5 to 10, what's my favorite? Well, I mean, I feel like on a scale from 5 to 10, my favorite Will Smith movie would be a 10, right? I mean, it's Independence Day, I think, right? I think it'd have to be Independence Day. I love that movie. Mara, do you have a favorite Will Smith movie?
Top of my head, I mean, Independence Day is good. Oop, that's my phone going off. Sorry. I would say some of them, they're either mediocre or really bad, and then there's the occasional really, really good one. There's the number that I haven't seen though, but I actually do kind of enjoy Hancock. Sad it's not an Inner Geekdom anymore. I have a perverse love of Gemini Man, even though it's really bad. And then, of course, like the original Men in Black is just great.
Yeah, that's
true.
I
also kind of like Wild Wild West. I'm under no impression it's good. I just like watching it because it's so bad.
It is truly terrible. All right. Well, yeah, there you go. So I'd say my favorite Will Smith movie is probably Independence Day, although I will acknowledge that he's made better movies, but that one's my favorite. And on a scale from 5 to 10, I'll give it a 9.3. All right. These are some other questions that came in during the show. Nate the Great says, hi, Dan and Mara. Love the channel. Would you be willing to review Coco Melon on the channel? LOL. Thanks. Okay, bye. Nate from Orlando. Nate, I think Coco Melon is like, I could review it, but it's the definition of not being made for me. I couldn't really, like, there's some things like, I'm not a fan of this franchise, but I can review it, as if I were a fan. I don't really know if I could review a channel or a show as if I were 6 years old. So I don't know how much, I don't know if that would be great uses of my time to watch Coco Melon and review it, but the kids seem to love it. So I think I'll stick that with them. I'll let them decide on that. Vintage Web says, Dan, the Mobile Suit Gundam trilogy is on Netflix now. Get to it. Oh, geez. Well, there's so much on Netflix now. If I knew what the Mobile Suit Gundam trilogy was, I might jump at it. I know it's anime, and I'm sure you know what it is. I don't know what it is. It sounds interesting. I've heard those words before in conjunction with each other, but I have not seen it. But you're telling me to get to it, so it feels like I should. Maybe I will. I'll add it to my list of 47 things to watch. Jeff Reviews says, with Hitman's Wife Bodyguard being its only competition and good word of mouth, what are the chances In the Heights has a good second weekend? Well, I mean, I guess you would have to define good second weekend. If by good second weekend you mean a drop off of, let's say, 40% or less, I think that that's possible, especially because the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard came out on Wednesday. And so the Friday through Sunday number is going to be even that much lower for that movie because you had 2 days. And I think it's made about $6 million or something so far. Those 2 days business are already rolled in. But if you consider a good second weekend to be building on the first weekend, I don't think that's very likely. I worry that it just hit. It either was a moot project that was never really going to capture a lot of attention. It was a much more niche fan base than many people, even myself, had projected, or that it just came out at the wrong time. I will say, though, my summer movie list is in a shambles because I actually just saw right before I came on the air, one of my picks for the top 10, Hotel Transylvania Transformania, was moved out of the summer. It got moved to the fall. So one of my top 10 picks, In the Heights, is almost definitely not making it. And now another one of my picks is moved out of the summer altogether. I mean, I think it's okay that I can maybe pick a substitute. That I could maybe say, oh, well, maybe it's Jungle Cruise or something. I guess maybe I can pick a substitute, extenuating circumstances. But yeah, that's a lot of fun. In the same week, one of my top 10 movies that I picked is out of the top 10 altogether, and the other one is out of the summer altogether. Just a reminder, as we keep going through the questions, if you wouldn't mind squishing that like button if you haven't already, share the channel, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to help the channel grow. You get more questions and games like does he or doesn't he, which really is just either my highest high or the lowest low that I've ever hit. Derek Plummer says, are you still watching the Clone Wars? If so, what are your thoughts so far? Love the channel. Derek, I am watching Clone Wars at a glacially slow pace. Things have just been so busy for me. I'm liking it so far. But I'm not nearly far enough into it to really start. And I hear it gets better as it goes. Like, I'm still in season 1. When I say glacially slow, I mean like one episode every 2 weeks, maybe. Things are going to start clearing up for me very soon. Time-wise and just how I manage my schedule. I'm working on a couple different things. So I'm hoping to be able to fold in more things like Clone Wars and watching some more stuff on television. Mara and I were Emmy Award nominating season has come around, and because of working on Honest Trailers, I'm part of the Academy, and we were looking last night at the nomination season has begun, and we were looking at all of the shows that are up for consideration, and we realized that we barely watch anything on television. And I know that there's so much good stuff on TV, limited series, movies, etc. So I really do want to start getting back onto the TV train and watching older shows as well. Eric Lane says, Wolverine does. Those mutton chops' primary function is thigh warmers. Well, there you go. Eric Lane says definitely does. Hitman Hudson says, will there ever be an All My Movies on the Greatest Film Ever Made network? I will say, Hitman Hudson, stay tuned, because you may actually see one in the very near future. Spelunking Down the Batcave donated $5 and says, I've tried to get through Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom multiple times and cannot get past the first hour. Is there a movie, preferably in a franchise you've watched the rest of, that you are incapable of finishing because you hate it so much? That's an excellent question. I don't know if there's one that's just like, oh, I've seen all the other movies, but I just can't get through that one. Mara, is there anything for you that you're like, oh, I can't get through it, I hate it?
I don't know if I've ever not finished something, but I have several of those movies where you watch it, and no matter how many times you watch it, it's like nothing stuck. Like you could throw that movie at your face 5 times in one day, and if you ask me a week later a basic question about it, I can't remember. So I have like mental block movies, whether they're good or they're bad. Like some of the movies I love, they just don't, just all gone. Yeah. But I don't know if I've ever not finished a movie ever. But you and I, we like to complete things though. But I don't know if I have the ability to not complete things.
The closest I can think of is I thought Expendables was okay, and I liked Expendables 2 for what it was. And I got 30 minutes into Expendables 3, and I was like, nah, I don't need to finish this. So yeah, that one. And then I will also say, for the record, I am not one of those Temple of Doom defenders. I'm kind of with you. I just don't like it that much. I really don't. And I know that a lot of people do, and that's great. I'm just not one of those people. I'm not a Temple of Doom guy. So I understand why it's a little difficult. Brantley Wheeler says, "Hey Dan, I've been loving all my movies. Just got caught up. Is there a chance you would do a Pixar/animated month?" Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for different themes and stuff to do. So I think we may actually, as we go forward, kind of looking at the show, I'm going to try to adjust it a little bit. So maybe there's a little more thematic stuff going on, kind of clusters, pods of episodes. So I think that's a very possible thing. I don't know if I do all Pixar at one time, but I love the idea of an animated month. Josh L says, for Dan and Mara, what is your favorite movie you first saw in school? Like when you had a substitute or something. I go back and forth between Holes and National Treasure. Well, I was a grown adult when both of those movies came out. First movie that I first saw in school, like when I had a substitute, I'm trying to think of a movie that I saw for the first time in school, because they would always put on like Aladdin, which of course I'd seen, or like, Beethoven or something. I remember growing up, they put on the Never-Ending Story once, and I didn't like it. I was very bored by it. I don't know why.
That sounds like a you problem.
Yeah, Mara says it sounds like a me problem. Yeah, I've since seen it. It's okay, but I remember them putting it on the first time. I'm like, no, don't like it. They showed the animated Ricky Tikki Tavi once when there was like a rain thing. I remember liking that, and the animated Hobbit they played at school, and that was okay. That was like the first Tolkien anything other than book that I'd seen was the animated Hobbit. And I remember liking that all right. It's not the best, but it's all right. Mara, did they put anything on for you that you saw for the first time?
Well, I can tell you what it isn't.
What's that?
It is not Old Yeller. Definitely not that.
They put on
it's also not Where the Red Fern Grows. It's not that one.
Wait, they put on Old Yeller for you at school?
Yeah, that's the only place I ever saw it. Are you kidding me? My parents were terrible, but they weren't like emotionally abusive.
Who does that?
Apparently my school.
Ask
Whitney. I'm not lying.
That's horrific.
Oh, hi, buddy.
Your school hated you. That was the
My
principal
school
that
hated
hated you.
Hi.
Oh, we have a cat.
Hi, buddy. You my good boy?
Yeah, you're my good boy.
He talks all the time. He gets on camera. He's silent.
Good boy.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see if we can get him to talk. Let's see what else we've got here. Tyler Knoll says, can only see in theaters, free for you, only through streaming. All right, sorry. Can only see in theaters, free for you, only through streaming, only in Blu-ray, with all possible bonus features. What movies would you pick? Sorry, I'm trying to parse this a little bit. Can only see in theaters, free for you, only through streaming, only on Blu-ray.
It's like, which of those would you prefer? Of those different types of
ways
to have a movie be seen?
Yeah.
Like, which would you pick?
I mean, if I had to pick a way to watch movies, it would be in theaters. I don't think that there's a substitute for that. I really don't. Even though I love Blu-rays and I have a whole show devoted to them, and I love special features and stuff, if I had to pick one, I would say definitely theaters. That's for me. Yeah. We have three GIFmoji, whatever you call them, beat poetries to do here. If you don't watch the show, people will send me a little moving emoji that's also, motion. I'm sure I'm a grandpa and there's a name for it that I just don't know. And when Mara copies and pastes it into this document, it just gives me the description of the little motion character that was sent. So we have 3 in a row. So get ready. There's some beat poetry. Ready? This one's from 1/4 Canadian. Pair character cheerfully blowing a party horn. This is like a stanza in 3 verses, though. We got 3. Ready? Pair character lifting some weight, saying, "Keep it up." And then here we go. Sheep a dog with sparkles in his eyes, saying, "My hero." Some great poetry. Good job. 1/4 Canadian, Carly Perkins, and Brantley Wheeler sent those in. So thank you very much. Aussie Nerd says, Documentary Plus has Hail Satan? A great documentary about Satanists. What makes a religion and religious freedom versus Christian supremacy? Yeah, Hail Satan, which is actually about the statue that was on the grounds of the Capitol building here in Arkansas.
You know what? That answers one of the last questions. We never finished it. Remember?
Did we not finish
we
the
started
documentary?
It, but we never finished it.
Did we not?
We had to go to a movie or something, and then we just forgot.
We should have.
Oh,
yeah, that you're right. There was a movie called Hail Satan with a question mark that was about the placing of the Baphomet, I believe, the statue on the grounds of the Arkansas State Capitol. I guess we didn't finish it, but yes, it's on Documentary Plus. So there you go. Ironhide 97 says, quick reminder for everybody to squish that like button. Also, I think does he or doesn't he should most certainly be a recurring segment. Sorry, Mom. Yes, I am also sorry, Mom. Peyton Frank says, Dan, were you able to see my Patreon message regarding Speed? Yes, Peyton. I'm sorry. I don't think I replied to that, but I will shoot you a message back later on today. Robert Parker. Who's this guy?
That's our
Robert Parker 98.
That's our Robert Parker.
Never heard of him.
No.
Robert Parker 98 says, great show as always, guys. Keep up the great work. Robert, I'm going to give you that. All right, I'll give you that back. Don't worry about that. Lurkerers says, what do you think of the new Picard season 2 trailer? I saw like part of it. I think I like brushed by it yesterday. It was like in the timeline. Q's coming back. Patrick Stewart I love Patrick Stewart, but I hope that they get everything they need because he's getting very old. And I want him to still want to be able to like doing the show and be able to do everything that he wants to do with the show. I was very ambivalent on the first season of Picard. I think that it did some things great, and I think it did some things awful. I think my review said it was Star Trek at its best and its worst. And when you're going into things like Q and you're really messing around with the Next Generation lore, no pun intended, I think that there's some real avenues. It looks like we're going to be doing alternate timelines. I think that it's got some very interesting potential directions, but I'm a little curious about where it's actually going to go. Josie86 says, no comment, just say thanks. Thank you, Josie. I appreciate that. Damian Barriga says, ever fallen asleep during a movie in a theater? Damian B. film. Yes. Sadly, even more so the last 5 years or so. I have nodded off in the middle of a few different movies. I don't think I've ever slept for a substantial amount of time.
I elbow you.
Yeah, Mara elbows me. I nodded off during Mary Queen of Scots a few times. I blame the seats at the AMC that we were in. It was the little theater, and there's like 3 AMCs in Burbank, and they're all stacked on each other. And it was at like a little one in Burbank, and they had very cozy seats. It was very warm in that theater, and the movie didn't really grab my attention.
I have occasionally at the drive-in.
The drive-in theater a couple times, nodded off. The movies weren't good. Assassin's Creed, I think I slept through a good 15 minutes of at the drive-in. But yeah, Mary Queen of Scots, I remember dozing during. Isle of Dogs, I remember I dozed a couple times for a couple minutes during Isle of Dogs. Yeah, there's a couple. Shamefully, yes, especially when it's a later screening. I have dozed off a couple times, but I've never like slept through a movie. I'll sleep for maybe 2 or 3 minutes and then I'll wake up. Damien Briga also says, what's your favorite theater? Do you have a favorite auditorium? My favorite theater, I mean, I love the history of the Cinerama Dome. And I hope it needs to be reopened because it's such a historic venue. I will say it is not one of those theaters that, they say not a bad seat in the house. The Cinerama Dome, you do have to get the right seats because if you're too close with the curved screen, it's a little tough to see. If you're too far back, there's an overhang that can block a little bit of the screen or at least obstruct your vision a little bit. So I love the history behind the Cinerama Dome, but it was never really my favorite theater in Los Angeles. Yeah, I would have to say my favorite theater in LA is the Vista Theater. It's got a lot of leg room. It's cheap. Sorry, I bumped the camera again. It's cheap. It's got it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous old movie. The owner is incredible. He dresses up as like in theme with most of the movies that are opening up every week. Just for the all-around experience, for the price, for the fact that it's an independent theater, for the sound is always great. The picture's always great. I would have to say the Vista in Los Angeles is my favorite theater. And then I'll always have a sentimental, always clean bathrooms. I will also have a very sentimental attachment to a theater that's not here anymore, which is the Cinema 150 Theater here, where I grew up in Little Rock, which was it had stadium seating. No one else had stadium seating. It was basically what you would get from a higher level AMC now. Big screen, big sound, huge auditorium, massive auditorium with the tiered seats. And I saw so many great movies there. And it wasn't quite an IMAX screen, but it was pretty damn big. And I loved that theater. Sadly, it is now gone. So I'll never be able to go there. Stretchy Hulk, my favorite name. Hey, I just saw the Sparks Brothers and really enjoyed it. It's theatrical now. Edgar Wright documentary. That's a lot of fun about the band Sparks. Love to see a review. Yes, it is on our list for this weekend. We're going to try to go see it. I don't think we can see it. Can we see it tonight? No, we have something tonight. We're going to try to see it this weekend. I think we're going to try to squeeze it in tomorrow sometime, maybe. But yes, I mean, obviously Edgar Wright, anything he does, I want to see. But we saw the trailer. The trailer looks great. Isaac T, or it is 44CT3. Also no comment. Thank you, Isaac, or is 44CT3. And then Peyton Frank says, Dan, I'm directing a play in the fall that is a satire on film noirs. I've been watching noirs, getting in the mindset. What should I check out? Double Indemnity is my favorite film noir of all time. I also think that you've got like the gritty film noirs, like the Maltese Falcon. You could go back to Europe with movies like M, although it's a little hard to satirize a movie like M. You've got movies like The Big Sleep. That's a great film noir as well. I even think that I think that, as weird as it sounds, I think that Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a great modern film noir. I know that it's animated and it doesn't quite have all of the different constituents, but it has a lot of the plot elements and the thematic things that a great film noir has. So if you're making a satire and you just want to hit those beats, for me, Double Indemnity is like the definitive American film noir from Billy Wilder. I just love that movie. This is, I think, the last question. I'll take the banner off because I don't have any others after this. If you want to pop one in before I'm done answering this, then of course you can. Juan Rodriguez Vargas says, hello there, Daniel, and Mara. Cast yourself, Mara, and the current SJU crew as the Fast and Furious crew. I love your genuine compassion, insight, and perspective on films. I always count on your reviews and analysis on films. Thank you so much, Juan. All right, Mara, we have an exercise here. So me and you, I'm going to add here. Let me add you in here so people can see you and hear you. So it's me and you and the current SJU crew as the Fast and the Furious crew. So here, Dan, Mara, so Spencer, obviously, Joe, Danielle, Juan, Roth.
Can we include Billy?
Billy, definitely. Eric, Kim Taylor Foster, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like the core SJU crew.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. We've got we have Dom, right? We got Letty.
Mm-hmm.
We got Brian. We can include Brian. We'll see. See if anyone is the Brian of our crew. He's still alive in the Fast universe, so I guess you should throw him in there. This just goes to show you how not an expert I am on Fast and the Furious.
You got to look up the cast.
I go Dom, Letty, Brian, and then it's just like I'm naming like actors like Tyrese, Ludacris. All right, so Tom, Letty.
I don't know what their names
Brian.
are either. I've only seen
Roman.
Roman
is Tyrese. Taj
movies,
is Ludacris. You got Ramsey, who's new. That's Natalie Emmanuel. Or sorry, Tej, not Taj. Tej. How could I get Taj and Tej mixed up? Taj, you've got Mia. That's Jordana Brewster, right?
That sounds right.
Han. Apparently, he's back with the crew now. I don't know. Who else do we include?
I kind of want to be Jason Statham.
Oh, that's right. Owen. He's a good guy now, right? He's Owen Shaw, right? Is he Owen Shaw or is he the other Shaw? Decker? I don't know. Hang on.
I don't know.
I'm not a Fast and Furious expert. I'm sure John Lestrina, if he's watching, is like, what are they doing? Look what they've done to my boy. Luke Hobbs. Okay, well, there's Hobbs. There's Luke Hobbs. That's The Rock.
I wish I could say I was Hobbs, but I know I'm not.
And there's Deckard Shaw, which is Jason Statham.
People are pointing out you can't forget Lucas Black.
I can't forget Lucas Black. Lucas Black is what was his name in that?
I don't know. I don't play in that part of the Schmodown. I'm not good enough.
Lucas Black, yeah, you would not want to forget Lucas Black. That would be that would not be a good thing. Sean Boswell, that's right, Sean Boswell, Lucas Black.
Sure, that guy. All
right, so I think we have enough. All right, so Mara, who are you?
I honestly don't know if I know enough about this world. I would say though, I don't want to be restricted by my gender, so I think it should be whoever I have the closest personality to. So you might know.
Well, I have something that could make you happy. You could be Helen Mirren.
I was gonna ask if I could be Helen Mirren.
Yes. So you're Queenie Shaw.
If I ever had like human children and not cat children, I would 100% parent my children that way.
All right, Mara, you're Helen Mirren. You're Queenie Shaw.
Yes!
Spencer's a funny dude. Always has a quip. Is he Roman?
He could be, yeah.
But I feel like Roman is like Spencer's like too low key. I feel like he's like, is there somebody? I think he's Han, because Han's like. He's like kind of low energy, but like he's always got the jokes. You would think so, but apparently he's back.
Oh, okay, then never mind. Yeah, he can be Han.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say Spencer's Han. Who's Danielle?
She's got to be somebody who like absolutely knows everything that's going on and who we literally cannot live without. So who's that on the
That's
crew?
The Rock.
Okay,
I mean, I think that's The Rock, right? You just described The Rock. So
knows everything that's going on, and you can't live without them.
Yeah. I would say, all right. I'm just gonna go physical resemblance. I'll put myself as Jason Statham.
Okay,
I'll say that
you're my child.
You know what? Just for that, I'm putting myself as Sean Boswell because I used to be part of. Because if it's the Screen Junkies crew, I used to be part of the franchise, but now I'm not anymore. So I'm Lucas Black, which also is kind of appropriate.
Oh, I like that.
All right, so I'm casting myself as Lucas Black. What about Joe? Is he Dom? Is he Dom? I don't know if Joe's Dom.
No, because Dom did that weird heel turn thing last movie and whatever, and I didn't like it. Yeah. And Joe can't be mean to us because he's the best human on the planet.
Yeah. You know what? Spencer does a great Jason Statham. I almost think I'm going to cast Joe as Han. Oh, and I'm going to cast Spencer as Deckard Shaw because he can already do the Jason Statham voice.
My boy.
Right? Yeah.
My child, Spencer J. Gilbert.
Spencer J. Gilbert. All right.
Who's older than I am.
So now we've got Lon, Roth, Billy, Eric, and Kim. I think Kim's got like that Ramsey. I mean, not just because they're both British, but like that kind of. She's Natalie Emmanuel.
Oh, okay.
Like that kind of cool, calm, collected thing. Like,
she can handle stuff.
She can handle stuff. She knows what's going on. You bring her in. She's a specialist. She does the job. All right. I'm putting,
also very striking.
Yeah,
she's a very, very beautiful lady.
I'm putting Kim down as Ramsey because I think that works. So now we got Lon, Roth, Billy, and Eric. I mean, Roth is she Dom? Because she leads the crew now, right?
I mean, I feel like position-wise, yeah.
I think she's Dom. I think Roth is Dominic Toretto. She lives her life a quarter mile at a time.
Yeah.
See,
I like it.
See,
that's so funny in the chat. Jess literally at the exact same moment said, wait, is Roth Dom?
I think Roth is Dom.
Yeah.
So now we have Lon, Billy, and Eric, and then we have Letty, Brian, Roman, Tej, and Mia. Well, Billy knows some of the tech stuff.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah.
So he's like logistics.
He's on the TriCaster before. He could do that.
I'm gonna say Tej. I'm gonna say Billy's Tej.
Okay.
All right.
What about Lon?
What about Lon though? I don't feel like he's any of
someone
these
has to have like a really quirky, sardonic sense of humor.
Right.
Who is that?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to think of. Like who is Lon in this group? Because like it's almost like someone who exists outside of the group.
Okay.
And can like comment on things. Like, I don't know. Like here, hang on. Chat, if you have any ideas, I would love to hear them.
Oh, you know what?
What?
Maybe. Wait, I know I don't know enough about them, but could he be I don't mean this in a bad way, but could he be the dead Shaw brother?
You wanted to be Luke Evans?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what his character is. I'm just trying to think of people that I don't know what their personalities are. Did he have a personality that's like Lon's?
He really didn't have a personality at all.
Okay, then no, that can't be Lon.
Very kind of like
Lon is a very specific person.
I almost feel like Lon is sort of like forced to be Roman because Roman is like outside, like Roman's commenting on everything that's going on. Lon is also very much that kind of sensibility, just like, are you really saying we're doing this?
Oh, okay, then yeah.
All right, so Lon is Roman. So that just leaves Eric Goldman. Right, I'm not leaving anybody out, am I? I don't think so, right? I think I got everybody.
The core group, yeah. I think so.
I don't know. Eric is you know what? I'm saying Eric is Kurt Russell. He's Mr. Nobody because he knows everybody. Yeah, like Eric's like been around forever, and like he know like, and then like he's just like, look what I got, and it's just like this like gadget shows up from somewhere. Yeah, I'm saying that Eric is Kurt Russell, which I'm sure Ross would be upset about because I know she loves Kurt Russell, but she leads the team. She puts the team together, right? Okay. So that's our fan cast.
Remember, Roth loves Kurt Russell, but I don't think Roth wants to be.
I don't think she's going to be. She's okay with that. All right, so this is our casting. Me and Mara and the Screen Junkies, the SJU crew. I could have gone into like all the guest hosts, but I don't know that much about Fast and Furious. So I'm Sean Boswell. Mara, you're Helen Mirren, Queenie Shaw. Spencer is
you mean Dame Helen.
Dame Helen Mirren. Spencer is your son, Deckard Shaw.
Yeah, he is.
Joe is Han. Also, we love to eat with Joe, and I know that Joe likes to eat. Han likes to eat. Danielle Radford is Luke Hobbs, aka The Rock. Lon is Roman. Roth is Dominic Toretto, the leader. the glue that holds the team together. Billy is Tej, the logistics man. Eric is Mr. Nobody, Kurt Russell, and Kim Taylor Foster is Ramsey, the specialist. You bring her in, she classes up the joint, she gets the job done. Boom, there you go. All right, that's my fan casting for Fast and the Furious. By the way, stay tuned here on the channel next week. We are appropriately, I guess, taking a long.
By the way, there are some other comments.
Oh, I see some other comments there. Oh, we got some more that came in. All right.
Some others had come in.
We are taking a long road trip next week to see F9, the Fast Saga, I guess is its official name, or whatever. Anyway, we have to drive quite a distance to see it early. We could wait a couple days and see it here, but I wanted to get it as early and get the review out to you as quickly as I could. So we will be on the road for an entire day next weekend. It's actually going to be weird because it's Tuesday, so we're going to be gone all day, but then when we get back, Loki will be out. So it's like I'm going to have to figure out how to watch Loki, do the review of Loki, do the review of F9. Anyway, we'll figure it out. But stay tuned. Next week, there will be a review, I think, on Wednesday of F9, the Fast Saga. Let's get to the rest of these questions. Josie,
I wonder truly if what everyone says that it'll take us a lot less time to get back after we've watched the movie.
Drive back quicker.
Yeah, I want to see if it's true.
Josie86 says, my question was missed. It didn't let me attach my question. It was, I'm sorry about that, Josie. If you met someone who had never seen a movie in their life, what movie would you recommend that they watch first? Wow, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to say. Maybe Wizard of Oz, because it has a little bit of everything, fantasy, musical, kind of shows you what it was possible. I know it's a little bit outdated, but I think it's got a little bit of everything. Or Fellowship of the Ring. Maybe
I might say that movie poster you've got there behind you, Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, you're still in the okay. I thought I'd taken you out of the chat. Yes, Lawrence of Arabia is a great one.
I might actually pick The Prestige because if they've never seen a movie before, they don't really know about surprises.
That's true.
Things that you should pay attention to in movies to try to predict what might happen.
Yeah.
And that movie is so good at disguising what it's saying.
I agree. Let's see. Do you want me to keep you in, or do you want me to take you out?
Up to you.
Well, I'll just so you can type. I'll take you out, then I'll put you back in for you. Mukbang Review says, what were your thoughts regarding Nicole Kidman as an actor? I think she's consistently amazing. I loved her in Stoker, Eyes Wide Shut, and Destroyer. All great performances from her. I think that Nicole Kidman was a great actor. I think the only times where she wasn't great, I think that it was a directing thing. I think every actor can put in a bad performance if you don't have a director there that's not modulating that performance properly. And because as an actor, it's tough for you to, because you're living the best reality of that situation as you can. It's tough for you to step outside of it. That's why I think, Hayden Christensen is capable of great acting. And I think that a lot of the blame that was heaped upon his feet for the prequels was also because maybe the direction wasn't quite where it should have been. So I think that she's a fantastic actor, and I'm glad to see her pop up in every miniseries on television. Damian Barriga says, if you can have any artist / band provide the score / soundtrack to an entire movie, who would you choose and what type of movie is it? Oh man, these big questions are always tough to answer. Any artist / band, I've always loved the music, and maybe it's the sort of early 2000s sensibilities for me. I would like to see just sort of a melancholic or a type of like La La Land style romance done to the music of Ben Folds. I just love Ben Folds' music, and I think it fits that genre very well. I don't know what Ben Folds has been doing lately. I know what Ben Folds did in the, up to about 10 years ago, and I love that music and that sound. And I've always thought it could be very cinematic, and so I think that'd be cool. And then I think this is the last one. Aussie Nerd, weight loss check-in, officially lost over 20 kilograms, kg. Congratulations. That is awesome. That is amazing. I know that.
You know how many pounds that is, Dan?
I don't. Do you? Mara's going to tell us how many.
4 pounds, Dan.
44 pounds.
Marvel at this.
That is
amazing.
So impressive. Congratulations. I know you also like to follow on Patreon your progress. That is amazing. Keep up the good work. If you have the vision of who you want to be and where you want to be, I know that's certainly something that I've worked on a lot in my life. I continue to work with and quite frankly struggle with from time to time is the weight that I want to be and getting to that weight. So taking the steps, and I know you've taken those steps, and the progress that you've achieved so far is really impressive. And congratulations, and keep working to be, that person that you look in the mirror and want to see. That's incredible. I think that's it. I think that's all the questions. I don't see any more on the document. So Mara, I think we're done. I think this is another live show in the books. We'll be back next week. Like I said, unless we have a change, we've got a couple of exciting new things, new wrinkles that we're adding into the show next week.
Like a little Shar-Pei.
Yes, a new Shar-Pei, a very wrinkly Shar-Pei. But as you can see, we got rid of the reflection this week. We got Mara, a camera, and a microphone this week. Imagine what we can do next week.
We're going to adjust our microphone settings for next week, so that way we don't have each other picking up on our mics as much.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lots of new different things to do. So thank you everybody for watching. Please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching us after we're going live. I think we're going to start doing these on Friday pretty consistently. Schedule-wise, it just seems like the best thing to do. But thank you so much for watching and tuning in. We will be back with a new live show next week, but there's so much between now and then, new charts, some reviews, a new episode of the podcast, etc.
Make
lots
sure
of
you
stuff.
tune in for Does He or Doesn't He?
Yeah, got to put together a whole new round of Does He or Doesn't He for next week.
You know what? I'll put it together for you.
There you go. Mara's going to put one together next week. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.